We have our own elected here, Kate Kruller, who's a council member for Tukwila. Sorry, wait, almost. Yay! And she's running this year.
How's everybody doing? So I'm not running at this moment. It kicks in, it triggers so many things that we are obligated to do when you're running for office. So, you know, I'm gonna have a research team looking into whether or not I should think about running again, but I thought I'd give you a quick update on what I'm doing right now. I'm the president of Tukwila City Council at this point. That sounds really like, wow, progressive, you're really progressing and moving up, but I gotta give it to you honestly, we watch a lot of other councils argue over this position. So we basically rotated by seniority, and I'm the last in seniority, and it's come up on my year before re-election. So that's a good experience for me to be having right now. I have also, I just keep stumbling into great opportunities. And about a year or so ago, I went back to DC for the National League of Cities just to see what their congressional convention was like, where they go up on the hill and lobby the congressional delegates. And when I got there, there was an application process to get on a committee, and I got on the National League of Cities Transportation Infrastructure and Services Steering Committee, which is very difficult to get on. I don't, some of you know that I've worked with, WASDOT and also with KCDOT stuff in the past, and so there's just enough energy there. Apparently, they pulled me on. With that, many of you may know or may not know that I spent an awful lot of time in regional committees, concentrating on the fact that the funding's drying up everywhere for us. No offense to the present company, but the state's given us less and less. In fact, maybe reached in and pulled some of our local funding. The federal government hasn't done a really good job of re-energizing the transportation sources that we have at the federal level. And right now there's something called MAP 21, which is the major regional way that we take federal funding, find a fair way of evaluating all the projects and divide it up, and I promise you there's not enough. And it's about the sunset. So the major effort is to lobby like crazy for this thing to be reauthorized. Well, the last time we went through this sweat was about a year ago in August. They reauthorized it for a year. And so the way things are going back in Washington, D.C., that's sort of how it goes. But we can't plan projects that way. So we're barely in every city keeping up. We're either on old project wrapping up right now, or we're barely keeping up with the maintenance. And it's one of those, only if it's broke, we fix it kind of situations. It really is a time for us where we're not getting enough money. So we're going to go back, my city goes back in about a month, just to simply lobby straight on that particular issue. So we authorized MAP 21, and nationwide, regionally, statewide, cities, and locally, we're all saying we want 6 years. Don't give us this kick it down the road 1 year at a time thing, because we can't plan. And for our area, you're going to feel a little stress between local government, people like me, and people that I really admire, like Washburn, who are advocating heavily for mass transit. And what they're advocating right now, and I want you to pay careful attention to this, local cities are saying we need to finish 167 down to Tacoma. We need to finish the 509 coming out of the port, because some people are saying, well, you're hanging it all on this old theory of trade, and how important trade is, but it's really not going to make any difference. We'll just fill up those highways too. But for us, this is over a 20-year-old promise to complete these roads. Some of them are 6-year-old plans in order to open it up for the trucks. So if you go up and down the Green River Valley, you will see nothing but warehousing. That competition and the two ports working close together are the only way that all of that economy is going to survive, or you will see it collapse. They built 2 ports on the East Coast, one of them is in Georgia. Some of them did dredging that would blow your mind to make it happen. And they are only 1 day difference now in shipping through the new Panama Canal wideness to compete with us. That's why the 2 ports in Seattle and Tacoma are now working together. Because if they don't act like one megaport, we can't compete against the Canadian ports, Los Angeles, or the East Coast ports. So I hope you forgive me, but we're focusing really hard on economy and jobs first, which also feeds in, once you get that going, it feeds into education. I always, forever, my heart is after mass transit. But we need to keep our economy alive in order to move forward. So I hope you'll support me as a council member in Tukwila And as your AWC state committee woman, if I keep foraging into the areas of transportation, it's literally been almost 10 years of strong funding from almost all sources, and it'll take us about 5 years to get started, get through all those eminent domain discussions with people who have properties, to get through all those right-of-way pieces, to get through all the EPA permits, etc. So we're staring at big delays on getting started on things we should have started 5 or 10 years ago. So that's my major piece of news. The good news is that it was kind of humorous. We got out there to go take the hill, and then immediately the House of Representatives went into recess before we got there. So our opportunity was to meet with our senators, Cantwell and Murray, who were both very helpful to us. And we came down as a group from the Association of Washington Cities, and we spoke at great length on our platforms and issues from the West Coast, which is not strictly National League of Cities level. And they were very receptive. They were really on point for everything they were talking about. And I could see them shifting on really important issues that we're starting to talk about now that the National League has been talking about for 5 years, such as these 111 oil tankers that are somewhat, they're volatile and they're dangerous. I want you to pay close attention to the dynamic between what's going on in Canada and what's going on here in terms of these oil tankers. If you drive by, I don't know if you notice when you drive by Boeing Field right now, you'll see an entire line of cargo train pieces nearest the road, and behind it will be 2 rows of all of these oil tankers sitting there. So they're trying to keep it from visibility to the public that is so unpopular. These 111s are now going to be banned in Canada. What we were told a year ago by BNSF when we went back there to complain about reinforcing them and doing a better job was they were going to build 2,000 new reinforced better ones. They have millions all over the place. But what they didn't tell us is they were moving the T11s that were coming down from Canada that they can't use there by law. They're using them in the United States. And what they told us is they were also reinforcing these older models in a way that would be really, really stupendous. Yet the last 4 incidences that have occurred in the United States were the reinforced older models. So we have a long ways to go there. I would hope that anytime you bump into a situation where you can vocalize about improving 2 major things. The kind of tankers are carrying not only volatile oil materials, which you've seen the big accidents from, but there are toxic and volatile materials that are even more dangerous than that. When they're transporting these, we don't want them to share with the terrorists where they are at what time, but we would like them to share with us how we're supposed to fight a fire when they collide with something and explode. Because it's about our communities, and many of our rail systems split our communities right in half. So these are really important pieces. The second thing is they're starting to move into a level, this is a hard discussion to have with people who are really pro-trade. They're starting to move to levels where they're having mile-long trains. They're calling them unit trains, and then they're going to move up to bigger trains. They're going to have more frequent trains. If you talk to Ritzville, they're having trouble crossing their tracks at this point because the windows of time to drive across the track is becoming so minimal per day, which is kind of interesting if you're in the farm industry and you actually want to move your freight. But we're going to start noticing it more and more in this area too. And it's like going from like 40 trains a day kind of thing up to hundreds is where they're going. With these unit trains, they call them unit trains, they are going one destination. They're not doing little milk runs, and that's why it's one big, long, huge train. It's pure money. It's a good thing for economy, but there's got to be a situation at some point or another where these railroads who have had major rights over all the communities around them for many, many years are going to have to work with our communities so that we have livable cities as well as good trade internationally. So that's sort of some big subjects. So I'm coming back from DC, so that's what we're thinking about. But I just want to let you know, when you put me into my office, I was supporting something that was called Save Tukwila Pool. We got the pool from King County in exchange for some of our obligations on the South Park Bridge. With that, our community figured out they couldn't afford the pool because we had no new taxes. So at the bottom of our economy, I was so proud of our community because I supported this. Helping kids learn to swim was pretty essential. They saved our pool by, I think it was $37 a month per household. I can't remember. I could sit with Lloyd and he'd be able to do it, but we were at the bottom of the economy and essentially we reached deeper into our pockets, and we're a very poor community. And we said, we want to keep this pool. Well, what that caused was that the city council members were also now ex officio commissioners of the pool. So you got a 2-for-1 in me when you put me into office. I did not for longer. Yes, that means I'm president of the pool, board of commission of the pool. And we initially contracted with the city because it made sense, they were running it, but they were still too expensive for us because of the older costs. We had 2 employees alone that were $200,000 a year, and there are other pools that run on $150,000 a year. So we had to make a change, and we split with the city on January 1. And we are down there working our back ends off, trying to make it a possibility for this pool to remain sustainable. We've done a lot of things with our programs, and we've expanded our ability to serve our community, and we're listening hard, and I think we got it together, and we're carrying it forward, and we're starting to work on some staff changes so that we can be completely self-sustained at this point. But I gotta tell you, I build the packets for the meetings. Other people are working on policies. We're borrowing them from other pools and starting to change them to Tukwila. It's real thumbtacks and chewing gum. So if you ever get the mood to swim, we'd like to invite you to Tukwila Pool, because everything that you do that come along there helps us keep the pool in place. I don't know what else to tell you. You know, you have me as a state committee woman this year, and I hope to serve you as well as I possibly can. But I will say, some people are going to ask why I'm not coming to every single meeting that we have. It's because of the commission and the council and these trips that we're doing. I'm hoping to be a much more reliable person in the April, May, June periods. Does anyone have any questions about Tukwila or what we're doing?
How many seats are up this year?
Tukwila is going to be really, really interesting to watch. There are 3 council member seats up, and then the folks that aren't up for that, there's 2 of them that are running for mayor. So for sure, we're going to have an appointment, and I don't know how well each of us will defend positions, but it's going to be an exciting year in Tukwila, from what I can tell.
I understand that the mayor is retiring. If you considered possibly replacing him.
So for me, I'm just finishing 1 term, and I sort of have it in my head that if my destiny is either ledge or is to be mayor, but I think I ought to bring at least 1 more term of experience. The people who are running this year, one has 6 years, and one has about 8 or 10 years experience. And so people have asked me, but I think it would be a little difficult coming out of your first term to just say, I'm your one. But I would say, I've said to many people, if I go 3 terms, I will certainly run for mayor. That matches a little better with my career. And I hope all of our representatives and senators live long and are prosperous, but the minute one of them blinks, you'll probably see me look in that direction. All right. Any other questions?
Say your name again.
I'm Kate Kruller, K-R-U-L-L-E-R. And I'll be around after the meeting if you can talk to me.
Thank you, Kate.